So no end screen or code snippet or anything in draft or behind the scenes for this video because I'm not going to put an end screen. That's what I was really trying to say. As I'm wrapping things up, and I'll explain later, but yeah, I'm going to try to shoot for a Valentine's Day thing for a Valentine's Day thing for World of War specifically. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. I don't remember the Curious Birthmark, I think, and then I forgot which old god, so we're just gonna say, for the sake of argument, ZHEC-TAST, and so, it was not ZHEC-TAST, but as we get into ZHEC-TAST, Curious Birthmark, custom character once more, I think I'm just gonna wrap things up with what I have, and just try and release it. It may not be in the most pristine, it's certainly not up to the level I would like to be, but after all of my art snippets and attempts, I guess I'll just have to be happy. Second encounter, Takshisan, strength, knowledge, light, and maybe a second mystery check. Because if nothing else, I want it all to be playable and for nothing to crash. And so I was doing some tests here and there for the past hour or so. Just to make sure, one, things were balanced, but two, things looked at least mediocrely okay, if that makes any sense. I will always throw down the, not gauntlet, but throw down the flag that is, feel free to modify anything I make custom content wise for World of Horror, as long as you're being reasonable as we get, well, actually we're going to go through all custom mysteries. So Shuttle, here we go, Diver, Piano, and Household Hell. That's a boss lineup if I've ever seen one. But for immersion's sake, we'll take Hiroko last. Which means I do have to try and survive. Which one do I want between Piano and Diver? I think I picked Diver first. It might not matter because of how we use the mysterious... Oh, we use the axe with the skill here, but... And yeah, for the most part, a lot of what I've decided to finalize is still really placeholder art, but... It'll serve the function for what needs to happen. It might not be everything. And there were a few, specifically, I wanted more references in the mystery, but I am not good enough in art. So, art, A-R-T, drawing things. And I really wasn't happy with what I had. Could just make more ghostly silhouettes, but that can only do so much before it kind of breaks immersion. If I think it breaks immersion, I can only guess how it break immersion for everyone else. But we're gonna leave immediately and just go on with this mystery. We should be able to just one-shot nearly everything. Again, the problem is always gonna be dealing with other stuff. Though we will make use of this because there's no reason not to. So. As we go on our full little we're gonna improvise for a bit. I can talk about behind the scenes stuff, why not? So really what I was trying to work on was basically refining or polishing up the art for the boss of Hiroko's Mystery, and it is not it ain't a diamond, that's for sure, if I were to say anything more on that. Yeah, there's a lot more I could have done. It's just I'm pressed for time. That's not an excuse, but I'm just telling you that I don't have as much time, so I'm just gonna do something, not doodle something, do something and just be happy with it. By the way, okay, 3 damage. I was gonna say you would think an iron pipe does more damage, but for balance sake, it should do 3 damage. But and this is something to keep in mind on the other side of that spectrum, which is why shouldn't the iron pipe do more damage? It's because you have encounters like the mainly Burning Man and Dullness, who you can just pseudo infinite improvise. I only call it a pseudo infinite. It is an infinite in one sense, but it's a pseudo infinite because you cannot have an infinite inventory or storage of improvised items, which is therefore limits how much you can do. It's still quite a lot. It ain't to the level of, hey, you have a katana or this item for the this weapon for the entire run, but it is still a very powerful thing to do in the middle of a Harbinger run. And old gods forbid you're on an endless run, but again, you will run out of ammunition anyway. So unless you run into the other passive enemy that doesn't attack until they're aggroed. Yeah, not much else to say on that. We can just immediately cranial fracture, by the way. I'll start calling it by skill name. I'm just a little scared of robots. Oh, that's right. But also the Burning Man gives you an experience up item, but... But on the topic of balance, as I roll an 11 on an 8 luck check, on the topic of balance, yes, okay. As I mentioned before, and I'll keep mentioning it again because it's still going to be relevant. It'll continue to be relevant for as long as I allow cranial fracture to do what it does. It is very powerful, but at the same time, I need to also reiterate that encounters, although they're a big part of World of Horror, I believe, at least in this version, events can still just absolutely destroy you. Now, indirectly, what I really wanted to add to that is that on a ZHEC-TAST run, you are effectively getting less doom as well, especially when you start out with a weapon that's this powerful. Again, I wouldn't say it's still katana level, mainly because of the speed. The speed really makes it so that you must have a high amount of strength. If you don't have high strength, you end up turning a lot more enemies than, or turning a lot more enemies than you think. Even if you're doing, well, wait, is it 12 or 9? Never mind. Okay, maybe you are turning a lot of enemies. But the point is still you're taking damage, as opposed to right now, where I'm not taking damage at all. So shrug. So what we're turning this mangled hand into is into a curse. Hey, that's actually pretty good, and it's actually might be quite somewhat lore accurate. But as we move on here, I think those painkillers went to the Aether. They did. But yeah, an attack plus a spell or skill use or item throw is a very powerful thing to do. I've showed you a few applications of basically handcuff tech. We'll just keep calling it handcuff tech, even though it's not really handcuff tech. But what I'm trying to say... Oh, we need charisma, by the way. And we also need perception. Yeah, we need perception. Hopefully my knowledge never drops during this run. I'm doing this so that ZHEC-TAST doesn't make me lose the run at 84% doom. And what was I trying to say? I was trying to say something important. I'm going crazy now. There's a lot more you can do with handcuff tech. There are a lot more risks you can take. You've seen me take some of these before, but in case you're newer to this channel, there are turns in which you can gamble on, say you need to hit 3 attacks in a row, but each of them has a 70% accuracy. If you need just 2 to then, say, throw a... we'll even use this here. We throw an iron pipe here, and if I'm within range to defeat the enemy... And say I want to gamble, yeah, we can no longer do prep strong. So, actually, can I do a gamble here? Can I do this example? Yeah, we can. So, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna actually throw 3 of these, because it's not like we can do a normal attack and get out anyway. So, what we want to do instead, and yes, I should do crit. Actually, no, there's no reason to. We're topped off on stamina. So what I'm trying to say here is that we gamble on this, but we actually want to use cranial fracture if we don't defeat the enemy. Now, again, there's not really any use case for this, aside from the fact that I may not do 17 damage, because we can do 16 to 18. But you get the point. If we hit the strong attack, we don't need to worry. If we don't, then I need to use it, and I did 6. So I lost both rolls. I missed. What was that? What were the odds of that? Case in point, by the way, I missed the 70% into a 66%. So... yeah, what's 33% of 40%? You can do the math at home, but that's essentially what I just missed there, and I took 4 all damage because of it, so... there was really no need for me to take that risk. I think there was another option select I could have done. We'll call it an option select, but I lost, but like an option select usually means it turns out well in case one option doesn't go well. That's the entire definition, or closest doesn't matter to an option select, but you get the point. Another common example is that, say you need, again, as I mentioned earlier, you needed to hit 3 attacks at 70% accuracy. Again, this is a very specific example, but just bear with me for the moment. You need to hit 3 attacks at 70% accuracy, but you only need to hit 2 and then throw a branch to defeat the enemy as well. So you basically run that sequence of doing 3 attacks, just making sure you're getting rid of Frostbite. And if the 3rd hit doesn't hit, you're essentially waiting for the game to tell you that you missed, and then you throw the branch in this case. I mean, I have a branch in inventory. So, I mean, I'll just show it off here, but it's not the real use case, although man, I really want to hit this. Actually, we don't need to, but I don't think I need to. No, I don't. So, yeah, we do this, and say I go towards the branch. We defeat the enemy here, but... again, if I'm like I'm actually pointing in real life, but if you look down here at the chat, you are basically either waiting for or listening for the battle to end, and then whether you hear the battle end or you see that you miss, you react based on what happens. So if you miss, you throw the branch, and then you should defeat the enemy in my little use case, test case that I said. Or, oh my goodness, really. Or you hit all three and you don't throw the branch, because you don't want to hit all three attacks, defeat an enemy, and then throw a branch. You've essentially just lost an item for no reason. Or for immersion's lore explanation, you've thrown a branch at an enemy that's already dead, so there's no reason to do that. But you get what I'm trying to say here, and in fact, we should just use cranial fracture here. If this goes correctly, you actually survive this. I think I've shown you the test before, but if you go negative but don't defeat the enemy, you do lose the run. That's quite unfortunate, but thankfully we have cauterize. Anywho, basically, it works out as intended. I didn't even need to do anything because there are little bugs that can arise. So, for example, so if you don't know how it works, cranial fractures stamina recovery. Essentially, you are taking 3 stamina damage, but if the enemy is defeated, it recovers 4 in the same use. Now, in a buggy example, what might happen is that you use cranial fracture, and then you just end up losing the run because the game reads that your stamina went negative. Theoretically, that is the case, but you understand what I think you understand what I mean. Just making sure I can survive. I think are we okay here? Hold on. Yeah, I think I need another point in charisma. Well, anywho, we'll just do it just to be safe. But yeah, that might be the case. Actually, that should be the case in some instances, but in this case, it works out because it does kind of reward you for being able to use the skill effectively, and I don't really want to punish you for that, basically. So, as we do get out of funds and take extra reason damage, I'm perfectly fine with it, but if the game does change or perm changes in a way where you lose immediately after using a cost for a spell and you go negative, then sure, right? Also, nice 12 roll. I see stats will never, ever matter for me. I mean, they do matter sometimes, but more often than not, as you've seen on this channel. Like, how can I... Why wouldn't I believe RNG? I was so flabbergasted I didn't know what to say. By the way, now ZHEC-TAST is giving me all the stat up events when I don't really need them anymore. So... And in fact, it's the stats that the stats that I don't care about, barring like 3 flashback curse stacks, but you get the point. Anywho. So I think now the game is going to randomize this event in Here It Goes Mystery here. So I'll let the kind of text go on as I just continue talking, just so I can catch typos. Or you can catch a typo maybe, because I'm not really reading this. But, yeah, ZHEC-TAST is a heck of a thing. Now, you notice that I usually purposely try to avoid ZHEC-TAST in these videos. And even while I'm testing, I try not to play on ZHEC-TAST or Azal. Just to mention it really quickly, as we actually thankfully succeeded. So if you failed, or there's a 50% chance you run into an enemy. That's all I'm trying to say. But ZHEC-TAST and Azal basically make a run harder, just without question. If you don't know what you're doing on ZHEC-TAST and Azal, on Harbinger difficulty specifically, but even on easier difficulties, it can be a challenging... They are challenging old gods to go up against, because they ask you to kind of understand. You can steamroll them like a good 30-40% of the time without really paying attention to them too much. Actually, that's not true. Azal has a couple of rules where if you forget about it, your doom will, even if you lose like 3, or doom decreases by 3. Nice 12 roll again. I was asking myself really quickly, I have to combo break myself. I was asking myself, there's no way I'm gonna roll a 12, right? Well, on this channel. So we take the reason damage here, but yeah, Azal, if you don't pay attention, even if your doom decreases by 3 and ultimately by 15 for the entire run, like, I can't get away from 12, by the way. The game keeps trying to sneak that past me as I'm talking about important stuff. Really RNG. But anywho, we'll fight this. No reason not to go for ending A here now, but keep in mind, so last mystery 5, all 46 HP, and in fact we can't even take that amount of much damage without just exploding. But also, I could have taken out ammunition. I did not. But, anywho, we should be able to brace here. Now, are we going to hit these attacks is the other question. No. We actually need to hit at least one of these attacks. It would be really, really nice. If we don't... I mean, I think we can... no, we're gambling. So, if I do Desperate Prep attack, that's 26 damage. Actually, I think we can do it now. Might as well, right? I mean, I should know better than most, but math, right? So 26, yeah, 26, and then minimum 16 HP's worth of damage. Again, if possible, I would recommend custom content creators. So here's your basic takeaway for the video. In terms of custom content, you really should try to make. I mean, as much as I kind of meme on RNG, add RNG. In this case, adding ranges to effects, whether it's damage, whether it's recovery, whether it's costs, you usually want to add it. Adding just a straight up, even like a -1 stamina or -1 doom or +1 doom, that's fine. But if you're doing more than that, it can really quickly add up, for better or for worse. I forgot my second encounter, but we have 55 doom, and I think we should be able to survive no matter what. So off we go. But yeah, you really want to give a range if possible. If it's not possible, don't break your back trying to make things work. I'm just telling you that if something heals 2 stamina, even though what am I trying to say here? If something no, we'll go with cost. Costs are more accurate for usual avoidance of things. And a big example is Toshiaki's perk slash Necronomicon pages. Even small values of 2 to 3, whether they're cost, whether they're increases of stamina or reason, because of how numbers work basically in this version, they are very huge increases in value. So to go even further on that, I think we took Piano second. Did I guess Piano's boss second? Anywho, we'll complete the thought and then end the video. But yeah, it's though. Basically, bigger values of those will make a difference. I also mentioned this with the custom old god. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name right at the moment. Please. Oh my goodness, you can't click there. Anywho, Aaron. I was gonna say Aaron. I don't know why I didn't think it was Aaron, but Aaron used to have an effect, and this is an extreme version. Actually, a very extreme version, where if you roll a certain number, you get like 15 plus doom. Even that's somewhat quite high, and that's mainly because of how many investigations you're doing. So if you've never seen Aaron before, and this is your first World of Horror video seeing Aaron, I'm gonna show you. So Aaron procs an effect every time you hit every time you investigate a location. So and there are 100 effects, which is why you're seeing this number here. So there are 100 effects, and the numbers 1 and 100 do things that are very good for the player or very bad. The very extreme example of very good was that your doom just gets set to 0. That's a good what am I trying to say? That's a good kind of use case in what you can do with custom content, but gameplay wise / balance wise, it is very, 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 very powerful. On the other side of things, I think if I recall correctly, the effect that used to be when you roll in 100 was that your doom went up by 20. Which you're like, well, Jordan at least is not setting it to 100. The problem with 20, even on a normal run like this, is that it can lose you the run, especially if you're someone interested in playing with custom content and then you suddenly slap the perm plugin in. Yeah, those are very, 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 very harmful effects. Now, they're also not the worst effects, but getting your doom set to 0 at the end of a run is basically 99 out of 100 times it's hard for you. You would have to purposely be trying to lose the run. Anywho, I've never actually seen this background. Maybe I should just... Anywho. Yeah, moving on though. Not really much else to say. No end screen again, so I just want to kind of end it here. If you have anything else, I think this is going to be how I finalize things. I might do 1 or 2 more videos on the non-Hiriko version of the mystery, but otherwise, I think I'll just smooth things out and prepare to just upload these. I don't know if it's going to go on Nexus Mods. I think it would be, because normally perm content is not recommended. This is not a direct quote by anyone. This is just my what I've seen. It's not recommended to be thrown on the Discord channel, basically. But if I'm wrong, please let me know, because at this point in the video, you're probably listening just to listen to veteran type things, whether it is information or you're just interested to see how I'm making things, or you're just interested to see how I play. Anyway, not really much else to say. Not going to take up too much more of your time. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye!